the NXT UK Heritage Cup winner, A-Kid. How's it going today, A-Kid?
Hello, Gary. Very well. How are you?
I'm doing not too bad at all, not too bad. Probably not as good as you because, you know, we mentioned that big news that we're definitely going to get into. The one place I want to start is actually the end of the match. And I'm not sure if you've watched it back yet, but it was a line that was said on commentary that I really liked. For people that, you know, aren't too familiar with what your name stands for, they might not have got the line, but it was Nigel McGuinness, and he said, El Nino Anonimo, anonymous no more. Now, if we look back at the start of this year, I don't think you were anonymous at the start of this year anyway, but if you look to where you were at the start of the year to where we are now, you know, lifting up that Heritage Cup, was it something you thought was possible back when NXT UK effectively wasn't taping shows anymore?
Not at all. It is surreal. It's surreal to think that I've had like 5 matches maybe from March to now, and my career has changed completely. Like in those 5 matches, like last year I had like almost 100, and it didn't even have that effect on my career. So it is an amazing time anyway. Like as you said, I'm feeling so happy right now to have finished that tournament and being the Heritage Cup champion. It is something I'm very proud of, not only because of how big it is, because it's the first ever champion, but also because it's the first time a Spanish-born wrestler is champion in WWE. So it's a celebration time.
Most definitely. We're going to get on to that a little bit later about being the first ever Spanish-born wrestler to lift gold, essentially. But I want to ask, you know, you mentioned being Spanish-born. Many people might have thought, you know, it's the first ever Heritage Cup. It's under British rounds rules. Of course, a British person is going to win it. That might have been the thought everyone had. However, I know that you have adapted to life in Britain quite well, because I've seen that photo, I think many have, of you sitting with a plate and it's full of Yorkshire pudding. So I think you've adapted to life outside the ring in Britain quite well. Was there any added pressure for you in the ring, you know, British rounds, maybe something you're not too familiar with? Or was it just really easy to adapt to?
I don't think it is easy to adapt. I don't think it is easy to any performer right now because, unfortunately, it's not very common. So I've had the chance to wrestle under those rules maybe 2 times in my career before this tournament. But I used to love watching World of Sport. I love this style, and I studied so much that I just felt blessed with the opportunity that I could wrestle under those rules in WWE. So let alone win the whole tournament and represent that style. That's something I'm very proud of, and I obviously work very, very hard to take care of.
Most definitely. I don't think anyone can argue that you definitely did take care of it and you definitely put in the work. However, I want to ask, was there any added pressure from a certain thing that happened just beforehand? Because only a few weeks before on NXT UK, there was a certain match that was rated 5 stars by Dave Meltzer. Now, I know that you're no stranger to getting the 5-star Dave Meltzer match because I think you're still the youngest man to do it. I'm not sure if it's your Tyler Bate as
in
the
a singles match, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so you've had that match. However, NXT UK got it with Walter versus Ilya Dragunov. Was there any pressure? Were you, you know, watching that match back going, oh man, I hope this lives up to expectation? Or did you just know that you'd put in a great performance?
Of course, there's pressure, but I think as a whole roster, that's something wonderful because, like, obviously, I remember watching that match and thinking, "Wow, this is unbelievable wrestling." But then my next thought was, "Wow, I would love to. I would love to top that. I would love to create that again here in NXT UK." So if all of us have that mentality, it just pushes the brand. And I think that's what we're doing now. Like we just pushed each other and we appreciate others' work. Like I absolutely loved that match, and it taught me a lot to go into that finals and deliver. So yeah, I think Trent also had that mentality, and it was really special in that ring.
Yeah, definitely. And the reason I mentioned that match is because it was for the NXT UK Championship. I want to ask what the Heritage Cup is to you. You know, is it the kind of thing that it's like, well, it's a trophy and I guess it is gold. Do you see it as like a secondary championship, or do you see it as something that means you should have a title shot for, you know, the NXT UK Championship? What do you see that trophy as being for you?
I don't really think it is a secondary championship. I think it is a different champion. Like it is a whole new world. Like we haven't seen this style in WWE in our life. Like there's no match in WWE and there's those rules. So anything can really happen. It's just a whole different world that I really, really want to explore. So yeah, I mean, obviously, as a performer, you won that title. You won the NXT UK title, but I feel like you also won the Heritage Cup.
Most definitely. I can't wait to see if it's an annual thing or what happens with it. But we mentioned earlier, the reason that this is such a good interview timing wise is because you did speak to Inside the Ropes at the start of the Heritage Cup before it kicked off. I had the pleasure of speaking to Trent Seven just before your match. And I want to just say a couple of things that Trent Seven said about you and then ask for your thoughts on Trent Seven, if that's okay, after the match has happened. So essentially, I'd asked him, you know, who's catching your eye, who's exciting you. And he said that he thinks that you have came on leaps and bounds physically, mentally, and the way you perform. He mentioned you've got that new hybrid style of being a bit MMA, but also a high flyer, really exciting. And he said you're definitely one to watch. I think that's a bit of an understatement now because people did watch and you've now held the cup aloft. But what do you think of Trent Seven now that you've been in the ring with him in singles competition?
He's unbelievable. He was, when I signed with NXT UK, he was one of a few names that I always mention that I want to wrestle. I think he's an unbelievable wrestler, and it is so special as well because my first match in the UK was against British Strong Style. It was against Pete, Tyler, and him, and being him, the person that kind of like is in that final with me, it means so much. Not only like obviously because of the match, but more of like a personal background. Like within three years, maybe I've changed so much from looking so up to this person to actually share the ring with them. It's surreal.
Yeah, I think that's the thing where it's like a bookend because that was the first match in the UK. And also he's one of the founding fathers of NXT UK. So it's essentially a passing of the torch. I've got one final question that's kind of split into two questions. You know, one of my other favourite things on commentary was a lot of people might not know much of A-Kid outside of the ring, but it was mentioned that A-Kid has once played for Real Madrid in the lower tiers, obviously, of Real Madrid. But I want to ask, is there anyone that you would have played with or against that people would know the name of?
Oh, no, I don't think so. Well, I mean, maybe because I don't really follow football anymore. So I don't know who's made it big. But yeah, I used to play with Real Madrid when I was like 6-7 years old. Yeah, I don't really like talking about it because I don't like football anymore. So I have no clue about anything related to it.
That's no worries. It leads on perfectly to the second part of that question, which is, you know, Spain, obviously a very famous country for football. Not so much wrestling, I don't think you'll mind me saying. You know, you are probably the most famous wrestler to come from Spain, unless we count Kane, who was born in Spain on a military base, but I think we don't count Kane. He's not actually Spanish. So yeah, obviously a big decision for you to maybe leave football behind and, you know, persevere and have a career in wrestling, which is unheard of in Spain. You're no doubt going to be an inspiration to a lot of wrestling fans in Spain who might, you know, have once thought it impossible to make a journey to wrestling, which I believe you spoke about before. Is that justification that your choice was the right one to follow your dreams, be part of wrestling? And if so, what is A-Kid's journey looking like? You know, are you planning on Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, or is it like, well, I guess I've made history now, I'll just see how it goes?
That last line has been my mentality my whole life, to be honest. So I think that's what I'm going to do. But yeah, as you mentioned, so I've been following wrestling pretty much my whole life, but I've also done other things. We mentioned football. I studied math. I was a math teacher, so I also dropped that. As you said, you need that. You need that to know that the path you chose was the right one, because I think that's the most difficult thing in our lives. Like, especially in a world where everything is kind of like set in a certain rule set. To go off that path and to choose to follow your dreams, it's so hard because you need someone to tell you what you do. And right now I feel like what I did was right because of how it has been so far. And I really hope that someday I can inspire someone from Spain to follow that dream, because they might think it's easier to do because someone has done it before. So that's the only reason I do it for.
From looking at Twitter last week, I'm pretty sure you've already inspired some people from Spain to follow their dreams, which is absolutely brilliant. And I hope we see A-Kid versus Eddie Dennis in a teacher off, because you guys both have that background as a teacher. But yeah, no matter where the journey takes you, I can't wait to see it. And I'll be watching NXT UK this Thursday at 8 p.m. on the WWE Network to see what's next for A-Kid. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Gary. Thank you.
Thank you, man.